calls her vision a Disneyland for data scientists, or if you prefer, a GitHub meets LinkedIn. Ultimately, it's about creating opportunities all around the world for those who don't necessarily have access to those opportunities. This female co-founder and CEO started her platform as a passion project, and it has become the leading professional network of data scientists today, with some 70,000 plus data scientists on the platform. Hello and welcome to Season 8 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to inspire you and help you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is brought to you by my company, Redbox Studio. One of our signature programs is an entrepreneur game and program where you learn to leverage entrepreneurial thinking. If you're interested in this strategy game and program, check out bigtimergame.com. Today's episode is with Celina Lee, the co-founder and CEO of Zindi. Zindi is the first data science competition platform in Africa. Zindi hosts an entire data science ecosystem of scientists, engineers, academics, companies, NGOs, governments, and institutions focused on solving Africa's most pressing problems. While today's episode is about Zindi, it's also about Celina and what it means to be female and Asian American and growing a dream that is making a tremendous impact in the world of data science, AI, and machine learning. Zindi is at heart providing access and opportunities to data scientists in Africa and beyond. I'm so excited for you to join me and Celina in our conversation today. Hi Celina, welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hi Krista, thanks for having me.
So Celina, I'm excited to be speaking with you today. But first of all, where are you today?
I'm dialing in from Cape Town, South Africa.
And what is it like in your city today?
It's actually freezing. It is cold. We're going into winter, so we have the opposite seasons of the global north. So, this morning was really cold.
But I could see some sunlight coming in from your windows, right?
Yeah, that's what's incredible about Cape Town is you get like every season in one day. So, by the afternoon, you might actually get some nice sun and some warmth, like t-shirt weather properly. But then by night and early morning, you're like bundled up in layers and layers and jackets.
When you say freezing, because I'm in tropical Malaysia, when you say freezing, what's the temperature like?
I actually don't know. And I also get confused because of the Fahrenheit and Celsius thing. Okay, 13. It's 13 right now.
13.
That's pretty cold, right? Yeah. For Malaysians, that's probably pretty cold.
Yeah, it is pretty cold. So because I see you wearing a t-shirt, right? I mean, your company shirt. So I was t-shirt. So I thought, okay, it must be nice and tropical. But I forgot. Yes, you're in Cape Town. Okay.
Yeah.
So Celina, I would like to get started by asking, who is Celina?
Sure. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Zindi, and that's why I'm in South Africa. I'm running a startup company called Zindi. We're the largest platform for data scientists and AI practitioners in Africa. I've been here in South Africa for 8 years now. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area in the US, and I stumbled into co-founding and leading Zindi because I actually have a long career in international development. But because I have a science degree in mathematics and computer science, when I got into the international field, I always was really fascinated by the use of data and technology in the development world. And especially coming from San Francisco and kind of the Silicon Valley area, it's always been interesting to me to look at the developments and kind of the, all the innovation that comes out of a place like Silicon Valley. But because I personally have worked and lived in places like Panama and Colombia and Thailand, I've always had this idea or this fascination with how can we close that gap? How can we bridge that technology gap and make sure that everyone's benefiting from those same types of innovations?
And so that's Celina, the founder. And well, what about Celina, the other side of Celina, when she's not a founder?
I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. I think I definitely, those aspects of, who I am personally come into, especially since COVID, like the personal and the professional identity becomes very blended, interestingly. So who am I as a person? It's so strange to think about. I'm from San Francisco. I was born and raised in San Francisco. My parents are from Hawaii. I'm Chinese and Japanese. My mom's Japanese, my dad's Chinese. But our roots go very far back in Hawaii. My grandparents were Japanese farmers in Hawaii, where there's a actual community there in Hawaii of Japanese farmers. And so that's kind of my heritage that I relate to very strongly. But my parents moved to California after they got married. And so that's where I was born and raised. And so I also feel like a very California girl as well. And and I have two kids who are 10 and 13. And they take up like the majority of my life next to Zindi.
You talked about that you worked in international development and you were in a number of different countries in Asia and all that. How did you end up going to Cape Town and saying, hey, I want to start this platform called Zindi over in Africa?
I've stumbled into this world because, in terms of my career, I studied applied math and computer science. I went into corporate America for a very brief stint and decided that this wasn't for me, or I wanted to pursue a career that I could also personally feel proud of and something that was more aligned with my values. So I joined the Peace Corps, which is a volunteer program where mostly young Americans, get assigned to do development projects, in different countries. And that kind of started my international development career. I worked for different NGOs and different organizations, related to the UN, the World Bank, USAID. And during that course, I went back to graduate school. And when I went back to graduate school, I got to get really back in touch with my statistics and mathematics background, which was really fun. I graduated in 2009 from grad school. And so at that point, I really started to focus on the role of data and development and the way that we collect data, the way that we analyze it, how are we using it for decision making? And then even further, as even the technology was developing during that time, it was also how do you use data in more, big data in more powerful ways to even extend services or extend benefits out to, populations that are less accessible. So when I came to South Africa, it was because I had actually done so much work in data and financial inclusion, the topic of financial inclusion. I was involved with a number of programs. And so there was a program that was just starting in South Africa that was funded by the Gates Foundation and MasterCard Foundation, run by an NGO here in South Africa. And they approached me to lead that program. So I got hired. I got a job offer to come out to Cape Town, and I moved my whole family out here. And so that's how I ended up in South Africa, was to run this program that was focused on the use of data and data science. Plus, at that point, it was the early days of getting excited about machine learning and AI and how that would be impacting financial services and between everything from the way government is collecting data and making policies all the way down to how fintechs are using data to, create more accessible products and services. And during that time, when I first started, I actually met my co-founders who are running a data science consulting company. And they had been in the private sector and, building products and, working with banks and different types of companies. I had hired them for our project to do some work. And so that's how I started to get to talking to them. And the founder of that company, Megan Yates, is a data scientist. And we sat down for lunch one day and had this talk about how, we wanted a Kaggle for Africa. And I don't know if you're familiar with Kaggle, and that was also a part of the project that I was working on, was to build a data platform of financial inclusion data. There was a global mandate in what I was doing. So Kaggle is also a data platform that is owned by Google. And Megan and I got to talking about how people say that there's no data in Africa, how there's no data scientists in Africa. And from my own work on that program, I knew that there was data, I knew that there was data scientists, but I knew that there were a lot of challenges for young people to build up their careers in this space and get access to data sets. So that was the idea. And so from there, Megan and I agreed that we would start a Kaggle for Africa, which became Zindi.
Wow. That is such an inspiring story, because you met someone who was as passionate as you about starting something, but also, I guess, in the way, like you said, providing access, right?
Yeah.
To the people who didn't have the access to data sets and opportunities out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we say at Zindi that our mission is to make data science and AI accessible to everyone. And, to me, access is the first and most fundamental thing.
And I also heard that you said Zindi is a little bit like GitHub plus LinkedIn, or married LinkedIn.
Yes, exactly. We're, it's funny because we started off saying we're a Kaggle for Africa, which Kaggle is probably less known anyway, but in the data science community, it is well known. So that resonated, and, that was what we thought of ourselves as, creating a Kaggle for Africa. But over the years, as we developed Zindi, we realized what we were building was even more powerful than that, in a way that what we were building was community. There was so much vibrancy on Zindi from the moment we launched it. And the site crashed like in the first couple of days, because we were getting hundreds and hundreds of signups, and it was more than we had really thought we would be dealing with. But almost immediately, a lot of these, basically young African students, data analysts that wanted to become data scientists, and of course there were a handful of people who would consider themselves data scientists, but essentially they saw this as such a huge opportunity. They immediately identified with it. And over the next, year or two, it became very clear to us that what we were creating was much more than just Kaggle. It was a uniquely African community of people who were passionate about data, as passionate as we were about data, and looking to connect with each other. When I was first in South Africa and working on this program, part of what we were doing was reaching out to young data scientists and trying to bring them into working on topics in financial inclusion. And I went to Rwanda and I met with this young guy who was doing a bunch of stuff with geospatial data, really cool data visualization. And so we sat down, he showed me what he was building. I was like, well, how can we help you? We were a nonprofit. So it's how can we help you? How can we work with you or whatever? And he said, no, can you just introduce me to other people who are doing similar work? In Kenya or in any country, he was just I feel like I'm alone here. I'm by myself building this thing. I want to ask questions to someone. And that stuck with me. And when we built Zindi and it was taking off, and I was like, this is the reason why it's taking off is because of this. People just want to meet each other. They want to help each other. They want to ask questions. Yeah. So I guess back to that question is, in a way now what we say is that we're building a LinkedIn meets GitHub for, specifically for data scientists and AI practitioners.
And that is so easy to remember, right? So memorable. You know what it is. You immediately resonate because these two different brands, right? Or platforms. Yes. But what does Zindi actually mean? I'm sure it's an African word.
It's a made-up African word. You would not believe that all this good Swahili words are taken from other startups. Swahili is such a popular way to just kind of create African brands. So when we started Zindi, we were looking for words. It's a made-up word. It's a combination of two words, actually, that one means to win and the other means to grow and multiply. So we thought that those two kind of encapsulated what we thought of for Zindi.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it together. To win and to grow, which is really what your platform is doing, right? I mean, so now let's talk a little bit about what Zindi offers or what Zindi is doing for the community in Africa. Or it's not just limited to Africa, right? I mean, anyone around the world can join.
I guess that's the other, I wouldn't even call it a pivot, but I guess a shift in terms of, first calling ourselves as a Kaggle for Africa, and now saying, well, where is it, a LinkedIn meets a GitHub for data scientists. It's also to say that, we've evolved and we've grown. And I like to think of Zindi as having African roots, but global reach and global impact. So today, our users, we have 70,000 users, and about 61% are on the African continent, but that also means 39% are everywhere else in the world. India is actually our second largest country after Nigeria. So our number one country is Nigeria, then India. I think just population-wise, it all makes sense. It adds up. But, we have a really strong presence in Asia, in Latin America, in the Middle East, of course, because we have Arabic speakers in North Africa. And then, so we have people from 200 countries in the world, practically global. If you look at our world map, it's practically all covered. I mean,
you're like Google.
Yes.
You're not Kaggle anymore. You're Google.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're not, so while our focus is still on Africa in a lot of ways, I think, our aspirations are global. And for me, what will be ultimately incredibly rewarding and satisfying is to say that, we're creating opportunities for communities all around the world who don't necessarily have that access and those opportunities. I guess maybe I can go on a little tangent, but, in part of what motivates me, right, is that AI is absolutely taking off, that AI is in everything that we do and influencing decisions in ways that we may not even understand right now, or influencing decisions, behaviors, the way that we do things. And if the data that AI is trained on, and if the people who are building AI are relegated to these specific privileged corners of this world, that means that the technologies that come out and the solutions that come out and the things that are being integrated and impacting every single one of us is not actually going to serve every one of us. And even worse, in the worst case scenario, it can actually negatively impact people. So if AI is being used, like say facial recognition is being used, it's one thing if you can't unlock your phone properly because it doesn't recognize your type of face. And we're talking about Asians, for example, or people of color. If your facial recognition isn't working on your phone, that's one thing. That's an annoyance. That's, that is a setback. But then if police, where literally this has happened, where if, law enforcement is now using, or security is now using the same facial recognition technologies, and it's misidentifying people because the algorithms have not been trained on more diverse data sets, and the people who are building the products don't recognize this. That's a fundamental problem to society, right? So, so the thing that motivates me, one of the main things that motivates me about what we're doing at Zindi is that we're creating inroads for more diverse perspectives, more diverse ways of thinking, and diverse data sets, and just awareness, right? So I think this is going to, what we're doing at Zindi, I hope, will have this positive impact in the world in a sense, like, making sure that AI solutions are representative of all of us.
So that's what motivates Celina. Ultimately, right? This diversity, like having more than just one perspective or one point of view of how we see the world.
Yeah.
And talking about facial recognition, sometimes it's quite frustrating even for myself, right? So just say like regularly, I mean, the phone can be accessed, when it recognizes my face, but there are times when it doesn't. And when those times are when I have this mask on, I'm putting some clay mask or some sort of stuff on my face that makes it difficult for the recognition to happen, and that's frustrating, right? So I understand what you're saying, like when it's the same person, but it's just a different circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's been tested and it's been proven that the AI, well, I mean, maybe it's been fixed by now, or maybe, maybe someone's been really focusing on diversifying this, but, it was actually measured that it wasn't working on women of color, but particularly dark-skinned women. But like, let's just say like, the data set that it was trained on was obviously not representative.
Let's get back to what does Zindi offer and who does Zindi work with?
Okay, yeah.
We're having so much fun talking about the motivations behind Zindi that we kind of forgot that. Okay, let's look at it from that point of view. Like, who can Zindi benefit?
Yeah, so in a way we have two audiences. Like, so for the data scientists, the 70,000 that are on our platform, they're able to build up their skills on real world data sets and problems. They build up their profiles because everything that they do on Zindi then gets rolled up into their Zindi profile. And then they're able to get jobs based on their actual performance on problems. And what that means, on the other hand, is then we work with businesses from the large corporate companies in Africa to the global tech companies like Google, Microsoft, to also startups and SMEs around the world. But essentially, we help them identify talent and hire talent. They can either, we help particularly with recruitment, but then we also can help, like, say a lot of the smaller companies are interested in short-term contracts, so we can also help them find short-term support. They're able to choose the top data scientists from our database off of proven skills. Secondly, the way that we're getting data sets onto the platform is that we run these as challenges. They're kind of like online hackathons. And this is actually kind of the most exciting part of the platform and why people sign up, is because companies will put up data sets and problem statements. And the community, then you'll have like over 1,000 people working on that problem and trying to build the solution. The platform automatically ranks the solutions as they come in. So for a data scientist, they get to keep improving and refining their solution over 3 months. And then at the end of the 3 months, the company owns the IP from the top solutions. So for the companies, it means they can get solutions, they can also get talent. And then we also offer an option for companies to white label the platform where they can use it as kind of like a training playground for their own staff to build up their data science skills.
Oh, so in a way, I look at it like you're matchmaking too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you're matching, right? You're matching potential hires to the companies based on proven results or proven solutions that they've created.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it is back to accessibility, right? Like helping, because when I say, for us, we want to make AI accessible to everyone, it means for the young people, but it also means for the companies. Because that's the thing, a lot of companies are just, depending on the companies, I don't know what kind of conversations, you're having in Malaysia, for example, but I think companies are really excited about AI and especially everything that's been happening over the last couple of years, but it's quite intimidating or kind of, unsure where to start or how do you even find someone who can help you with this. And that, to me, accessibility is also on the side of the companies to make sure they have access to the people that they need to get on this, on this track.
So I presume that for the companies that you help, they need to pay a fee or they need to subscribe to something, right? Yeah. Or is it like, do you also charge, or do the data scientists or the potential data scientists on your platform, do they need to pay a fee to use your platform?
Right now, the data scientists don't pay anything, but the companies pay for running competitions. So where they get to own the IP, it's kind of like, you can hire a consultant or you can have 1,000 people working on your problem and then you own the top 3 solutions, not just the one. And also we have a hard deadline. So by that deadline, you're getting your top 3 solutions and the best of the best. So we charge companies for running the competitions and getting the solutions. And then we also charge for the recruitment services, essentially.
And I also see it as partly great PR for the companies, right? I mean, the fact that they're hosting or offering up that competition itself puts them in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, because I think that became apparent to us very early on with Zindi, is that it's actually the brand positioning and marketing that motivates a lot of the companies, and that's great. I mean, that works for us for sure, and it's totally valid, because and we see that there's two types of companies that can benefit from the PR and the marketing. One is, as let's say, like a lot of the major banks in Africa feel, if you talk to them, they feel like they're all fighting for the same small subset of top talent in their countries. They even feel like maybe they're competing with the startups that are doing more innovative and, exciting work. So they're saying, how do we attract top talent to work at a bank? Like, who wants to work at a bank? And so
when you could work at a startup.
Yeah.
It's like a startup, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, like the startups are sexy. They can actually now, I mean, depending on the startup, like they can actually compete a little bit on salary. So like, how do you make it attractive? And so for a lot of the banks that work for us, when they run a competition, it's as much about the solution and the talent as it is the brand positioning, to say, we're an employer of choice too. Like, we're doing interesting work, we're innovative. Yeah, so there's that. So there's companies that want to be seen as an employer of choice in this market to fight for the, for the top talent. And then the other type of company that works with us are companies that have maybe a product or a service that could be interesting to this very specific high value, market of data scientists. So there's tons of like data science platforms and tools that are getting out there, even platforms with interesting data sets, and they want to make sure that that this community knows about it and is aware of it.
So when I want to refer back to when you said your platform crashed when there were so many signups the moment that you started Zindi, was it very easy for you to get started? Like, did you just tell people or tell organizations or companies that you were doing this and everyone flocked to the website or the platform, and you didn't have to do much marketing? Did you just gain momentum in that way?
So I think two things. Like, one is that Africa is a very interesting market. It's like, it's strange. Like, I don't even remember the population of Africa. But anyway, I was talking
it's a lot,
to someone,
right?
It's a lot. But someone had said, like, you say that there's this many people in Africa, but where are they? And it's that sentiment. That sentiment is reflective of saying that it's actually very hard to find people. Like, it's actually very hard to connect with people in a lot of ways. Just because the infrastructure is different. It's broken up into so many, 54 countries. It's not so. In Africa is an interesting market because on the one hand, it's very hard to connect with people, but on the other hand, it's so networked. It's so community oriented, based on like personal relationships and networked. And I think culturally, it just feels like, people are very like community oriented and willing to help and interested in helping their communities. That, I think it opened up an interesting opportunity for Zindi to kind of take off in a somewhat viral way. I think the other thing is that I've done a lot of community work, or kind of, in my past jobs, in a way, like kind of mobilizing specialized like groups across different countries. So I loved this challenge. I loved the idea of it. So actually, one of the first things that I did while we were getting ready to launch Zindi is I went on to meetup.com. I went onto Facebook groups and I just stalked out, like, who are the leaders of communities, data science communities out there? And I just reached out to a bunch of them. I was like, okay, what AI groups are in Kenya? Okay, this guy. Okay. I'm like, now we're friends, and now I'm going to go to Kenya. So let's talk to the community there, so that's how we did it. It was a real network effect. It was kind of like, find all the hubs in the different countries, and it kind of took off from there. And then plus social media, on Twitter, like in that first week also, I think someone came up with like a hashtag that was that called himself a Zindian. He was like, I'm proud to be a Zindian. And we're like, oh, Zindian. Okay, that's what we're called now. So now everyone's called Zindians.
So the people on the platform now who use it are called Zindians.
Yes.
Okay. And that is also user generated, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a data scientist in Nigeria who posted on Twitter, and it was like, oh, that's perfect.
So you have been growing just, I would say, through word of mouth, through online, through communities of data scientists who know about the platform.
Yeah.
But before Zindi came about, where were these people? I mean, what were they? Did they even have a platform? They didn't have anything?
There wasn't
None?
a platform. And that's why I'm saying it was very fragmented, right? I mean, that's where there was such a huge opportunity, is that when I looked up where the data science communities, there were tons of communities and they were focused on one city at a time, right? There was like AI Saturdays Lagos, there was AI Kenya, there were a few like, there's like Pi ladies, so Python programmers who are ladies, our user groups. So there were a few that were even global in a way, like our user groups is like a network of networks, like, across the world, you'll find our user groups. And then if you went into, in Cape Town, they had their own our user group, in Nairobi. So I would say it was fragmented, some signs of some global connections, but not a ton. And in terms of like an online platform, there wasn't an online platform. And I guess that's why, like, I'm so excited about Zindi going from being a Kaggle to a LinkedIn, is because, I think what I would love for Zindi is that the Zindi profiles become the thing, that people are that just like a LinkedIn profile is your professional that's your identity as a professional. Like, I want Zindi profiles to be the identity, and so anyway, I think that's, that idea of all these communities and all these people and not having like one online place where they can all meet. Like, that's why I think the profiles could become really important. And we see people can direct message on the platform. There's also discussion forums. The discussion forums are doing okay. Like, people post and there's a bit of interaction, but we see a lot of chatter in the private messaging. So it means people are connecting. It's very cool.
Do you see any success stories from all that connecting?
Yeah. We wrote up a blog post about, so people can create teams on Zindi. So when, say a bank puts up, a problem statement on Zindi to predict customer churn, then people will form teams, and a lot of times they see each other on the leaderboard, and then they just reach out to them in direct messages, and then they form a team. And so one team that entered a competition, that formed over a competition, they have now started their own startup company together. They became friends, and then they became co-founders.
Oh, that is so cool. I mean, I think that's the best way to find your co-founders, right? I mean, based on their mission.
Yeah. I mean, and then you've had some experience working together and solving problems together. So you've had a taste of what it would be like working with each other. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That is one of the secret sauces about Zindi, is these problems that we are able to put on the platform. Means that it means that the connections are much more meaningful, right? Because it's one thing, like, I've been a part of different platforms where they're like, oh, do you want to meet this person? And like, sometimes it's like, yeah, I guess I could meet that person. I don't really know them, but that's okay. But this means you're connecting over something a lot more kind of tangible and meaningful. And, it's not really awkward because you're both kind of like, running at the same goal at the same time and helping each other. So yeah. And I've also seen a lot of people get jobs from each other. And that's why this year for us is all about recruitment and contractor placement, like placement of talent into companies, however that looks, but helping companies get in touch with the talent that we have, because a lot of people are getting jobs off of Zindi. And you asked about the connections. I mean, what's also very cool is that we see some people hiring each other, like maybe there's a more senior person who's on Zindi in a position to hire, and then he or she can just hire someone that they met on Zindi, which is incredible also.
So there's a lot of things happening for Zindi, but in early years, compared to the early years, did much of the strategy change, or did much of the plan change?
Yeah, I think, for what's been good and bad about running Zindi is that, Zindi started as a passion project. It was something that Megan and I loved. We
and
loved.
I can still hear that passion in your voice. I can still hear your voice.
Yeah, I mean that for good or bad, that is the thing, is that Zindi started as a passion project. An investor literally, anyway, it's a long story, but an investor wanted to value Zindi at zero because we weren't making much money. And, and I guess that this is the thing, is that, because it was a passion project, it wasn't a business first. We didn't start with a super strong business model in a way, but that allowed us to free our minds to come out very strong on the community side, right? It meant that, I wasn't in the first instance interested in trying to charge the data scientists to join Zindi, for example, and that would have stifled our growth. So that's why I say it's for good or bad. But it's been, Krista, it's been a long and bumpy road. Let me put it that way. And it's been basically 6 years on this journey, and it's been, super challenging in a lot of ways, lots of learning. And so I think, we've had to, I don't even think it's pivots. I don't even like to call it pivots, and it hasn't been, it's just been kind of I guess, maturing as a business and refining kind of what we need, what the priorities and what we needed to do as a company to continue on this mission and this growth pathway.
And you were just talking about some of the challenges. Could you specifically talk about one of them?
It's been being on this startup journey, and I think also the thing is that, because I stumbled into it and it wasn't something that I had ever, this whole startup thing, it was not something I ever thought about for myself, which means also I never really researched it in a deep and profound way. It kind of stumbled into us. No, it's kind of because we started Zindi as a passion project. We got approached by one investor and I was like, oh, you want to give us money so we can actually do this thing? And, so I didn't understand the implications of jumping onto this pathway. Although now I would say I wouldn't have done it any different. Zindi has to be a startup company. That is the key to Zindi's future, is to be on this pathway. The choice is, quite honestly, to be honest, the choices would have been to register Zindi as a nonprofit organization, in which case we would be, going around looking for donor funding or philanthropic funding, to run it. I think those are the only choices. And maybe to run it as a small business that was maybe bootstrapped. It was bootstrapped in the beginning, but to bootstrap it forever also would have been difficult, because the true value of Zindi is going to come out when we hit, 1 million users. And in order to get there, it does take a lot of resources. But anyway, I think that the challenges for me have been just reconciling, reconciling the impact, the aspirations for impact, for positive impact on society, reconciling that with, that this is a business. And also, not only is it a business, it's a venture-backed business, and we're on, we need to find that pathway, into high growth, high scale. And I think the ingredients are there, but that being said, therefore then a tangible challenge is that, fundraising can be really challenging. And we're last year was extremely challenging financially, because it was a really bad time to fundraise. Even as a business environment, even the revenue potential with companies was quite hard. I think a lot of startups will relate to me that 2023 was not a good year, but it was a good year for Zindi in the sense that, our only focus was to get to a financially stable position, to get to break even. So at the moment right now, we're stable, and, I'm really proud of that we've gotten there. And the reason why we're here and why 2023 was really challenging is because the fundraising environment can be really hard for startups right now. And
are you fundraising this year? Are you back to doing that?
yeah, we will probably raise around towards the end of this year. I mean, that, kind of 2023 was challenging but good in the sense that like we're starting to build up some good momentum, and then we'll look at probably raising a smaller bridge round into Series A towards the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. So just early days of thinking about it.
And what's next for Zindi? I mean, I guess since you're talking about fundraising, what's in the future?
The focus for this year is really to get the talent, the talent business. And, we've already had some really great success stories with, companies like Sasol, Deloitte, and then smaller startups. And that's that's a large focus of this year. And for me, that's like a stepping stone, because what the aspirations are, what's next for Zindi is to be the professional network for data scientists globally. So as well, looking at global expansion and really building the premier platform. I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to do in the platform, a lot of, just UX feature, new features, even integrating AI into the things that we do. There's a lot of things we want to do on the platform. And I'm really excited about our product roadmap on that front. But yeah, we want to become the place that data scientists have to be.
But you already are, right? You're the largest.
In Africa, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Africa is a big place.
Yes, as we've said.
Yeah, it is a huge place, right? So you are 54, right? 54 countries?
54 countries. And we have data scientists in 52 of the 54 countries, imagine. So almost any country, you want to look for, and countries that people, I'm in the South Africa, in the very tip of Africa, literally people will be like, what is that country? Like, name some random country in Africa. What is that country? People don't even know all the countries, but we have them on Zindi somehow.
Wow. So a lot of exciting things are happening for Zindi, but what is the most exciting thing for you?
I think getting to this place where people, where diverse talent is finding jobs, and therefore where we're solving problems, where we're mobilizing. I think of Zindi as like this pipeline of raw talent. On the front of the pipeline goes in the raw talent. On the other end of the pipeline comes out these market ready to add value to your organization professionals. And that's what I'm excited about. I mean, and the good thing about our long journey to date, like the 6 years under our belt, is that it's been long enough that I actually am able to see it. I'm actually able to see some people who I come across who are working as a mid-level data scientist at a really great company. And then I look at it and I say, oh, they joined Zindi like 4 years ago or 5 years ago as a student, as a second year engineering student. So that's what I'm most excited about. And then geographic expansion. I mean, because I have these roots in working in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, I can hardly wait. I can hardly wait till till these success stories are happening in other places like that.
And you could easily replicate this, right?
I think so.
Every
it's all
different
the same platform.
region.
Yeah. It's all the same platform. We actually bought the URL Zindi.world. Zindi World.
What was Zindi Global?
Okay, that's true. We might also own that one too. But I like this idea of Zindi World. Like, we are like the Disneyland for data scientists.
Actually, that's a good one. Disneyland for data scientists, right? Where they get to play and have fun.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, but that's a really cool tagline. You could use it for Zindi World. And maybe in future have a real Zindi World where kids can actually go and learn in a very hands-on, tangible way. And that's so cool. We've talked about Zindi, we've talked about what you're doing for data scientists in Africa, and of course, other people around the world can also join Zindi.
Yeah.
In your case, how has it been like as a female founder of a startup that initially you thought was just a passion project, and then you've had to do, you have to raise funds and at the same time work on something that is huge.
Yeah.
And huge as in impacting people, in a way that's huge.
Yeah, as a female founder, what's good is that in a way, like I've been in this work world for over 20 years now. I've seen it all, and also it's like I said, it's not like I went straight in to say, I'm going to be a founder. I'm going to be working in startup land. That wasn't what I was thinking, but it means that I've been in corporate environments. I've been in government environments. I've been in nonprofit environments, and the opportunities for women the environment is definitely a lot better than when I first started in this professional world, for sure, and the amount of awareness. But that being said, I feel like the startup world is almost like one of the last bastions of still like pretty strong bro culture, pretty strong I guess the thing is that I always that I always think about is that you can start these virtuous cycles, and it's always like the first step that's the hardest or the most uncomfortable. And this idea that, the reason why there's still a lot of inherent sexism in the startup world is because, there's so many layers of decision makers, from the founders themselves to then the VCs, and who is sitting on your investment committee, who is making those decisions, with the VCs, and just everything. So I think the thing is that there's like a self-perpetuating lack of diversity in the startup world, but it's not that hard to break it if we make conscious decisions to, make sure that we let more women into, onto the investment committees, more women into the accelerator programs, more women that we just consciously try to fund. Like there's a lot of funds now for female founders. And so I think those patterns will start to break, but yeah, for me as a female founder, I've seen some not so great things, and I've been treated in certain ways that I'm not happy about. But I guess putting it into perspective, like I said, I've seen worse. I've lived through worse, and it makes me stronger for it. So I can thank these people maybe 10 years from now.
And what about being Asian American? And how has that shaped your career and your life path?
Yeah. And I love that you're doing this podcast with a focus on Asian women, because the identity of Asian women, is so diverse, and especially with, I guess in a way, I guess I'm a diaspora.
You are.
Which I never thought about it in that way exactly. But yeah, being Asian American for me, and it was interesting because my parents grew up in Hawaii, and I grew up going to Hawaii every summer and spending time with my family there. And I could see the difference because Hawaii is very Asian. I don't know what the percentages are, but it's a very Asian culture even. It's an Asian population, and the culture itself in Hawaii is influenced by Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Filipino. It's a mix of Asian culture. And so growing up in California, then I had this awareness of being a minority, and also because I could also juxtapose that with my experience whenever I was in Hawaii, where I would just blend in and no one would ask me where I'm from. No one would think twice why I speak English or why my parents speak English. Literally I have these conversations where it's like, oh, your parents speak really good English. It's like, I don't know what else, what else you can expect from them because they only speak English, and so I think in growing up in California, I was very aware of my minority identity, and, which can be hard, but I do think that there's a superpower that you get from growing up as a minority and growing up in a place where your frameworks and your perception of what's right or what's correct is not always, is. And that superpower to me that I've seen is that you're able to think outside of yourself like very easily. And I feel like I'm able to do that for good or bad. It's like, it means that you don't like some people who have never lived as a minority, the moment they step out into a different culture or a different place, like they almost like melt down. They just melt down. They don't understand, like, how can these people think this way? Or how can this be done that way? Or they just, and then they literally, some people throw a temper tantrum, much less like create a constructive, opportunity out of this, And so I think in a way, like growing up Asian American is the thing that has allowed me to have the career that I've had, that has allowed me to adapt to everywhere from Latin America
to Asia.
Of course. And then even to Africa, just being able to relate to people in a, and it's not, it's like you relate to people in a way where I think your starting point is a point of humbleness, I guess, like, being willing to accept that, that you're not always going to be right. And that means that you're able to listen to people in a different way. And also then pick up on where the opportunities or the needs in a different way. But I have to say, when I lived in Thailand, it was incredible. That was my first time living in Asia, and I was there for almost 3 years. And I mean, Thailand is incredible, of course, but it was such a cool experience, like living for so long in a place where no one looked twice at me. Until they tried to talk to me, then I was lost again.
Because you could pass off as a Thai person, right?
Yes.
Until of course
Thai people assumed I was Thai. Yes.
Yeah. And they probably then asked them, how is it possible that this Thai woman doesn't speak Thai?
Yes. I once went to a conference. It was small enough where the speakers were at the front and they were like kind of doing it in English. And then they looked around the room in the audience and they were like, wait a second, wait. We don't have to speak English. We can switch to Thai. So I was too embarrassed to raise my hand. So I sat through an entire conference in Thai.
In Thai. Did you ask
the audience and they're like, wait, why are we speaking English?
But that also shows that you blended in so well that they didn't assume that you were a foreigner.
Yeah. So it was a very cool experience. And I think minorities, like Americans who grew up as minorities, can really relate to this, because also African Americans sometimes will say that it's like when they come to Africa, to just blend in is like such a cool experience. It's such a different and cool experience. And I feel like as an Asian American, and especially an Asian American who's so removed, like generationally removed, like, my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. I mean, it was in the 1800s that my family landed in Hawaii. So me being so removed and, compared to other Asian Americans who maybe go to Asia and have that experience, like I had never had that experience. It was really, it was I'm
always
so glad
US
that I got to
right?
do that.
It was always US mainland. It was always like the mainland of US, where you lived, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's home, and that's me and that's my identity. But, that's what's weird for Americans and minority Americans. It's like, you can be American and you can feel at home in America, but in truth, like, you just almost accept it and you just get used to it, that your identity is always questioned constantly. It's a strange thing.
It's like you're there, but you're also not there.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're there, but when you come to Asia, I mean, you're completely 100%. You can blend in effortlessly. There's no question about Of course,
Who are you?
Who are you? But of course, when you start speaking English, then they start thinking, okay, this is something strange. Like we have to ask her where she's from right now because she has an accent.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I love Malaysia and Thailand, and I mean the whole region is incredible. So
I love that we're having this conversation too, because as I mentioned to you, my podcast actually happened because I went to Hawaii. I went there and did a pitch and wanted to do a podcast. And how cool is it that I get to do a podcast now and I'm interviewing someone whose roots are in Hawaii?
That's so cool. Yeah, your podcast has roots in Hawaii, just like me.
Yeah. So we have something in common. And I would also like to give a shout out now to our dear friend who recommended you to be on the podcast.
Oh,
so
yes.
Charlie, right?
I know, she's awesome.
And how do you meet her? Please tell us.
Yeah, we're both a part of the Unreasonable program. I guess we're fellows in the Unreasonable program, which is it's kind of like it's not really an accelerator, but it is kind of like a support system and an accelerator for enterprises that are having a social impact. And one of their taglines, I think, is to repurpose capitalism. Which I love. So yeah, I've met some incredible people through Unreasonable. So shout out to Unreasonable as well. Their support has been instrumental completely.
And do you have to apply to get in?
You have to apply to get in, but it's also even networked. So they especially ask fellows to recommend other, potential founders. So it's kind of also like a little bit on the down low in a way.
So it's kind of like a network effect too, right? I mean, they kind of ask people who have been through the program to recommend other people.
Exactly. Like when I met Charlie, that was also the first time that I met Daniel, who's the founder of Unreasonable. And when we sat down to talk, it was very cool because I felt I related so much because in a way Zindi and Unreasonable are on a similar journey and the power of community and this, what they're really trying to do is get founders to help each other and, create these support networks. It's really great. I'm also a part of the moms group, the mother founders group, which has been so nice.
Within Unreasonable?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they have a subgroup.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. They have different kind of like opportunities where you can network with other fellows because you obviously don't know all of them. But yeah, so meeting Charlie was also one of the benefits was, those networking opportunities where I can meet other fellows around the world.
Oh, that's so cool. That really is so cool. So before we end, I want to do a rapid fire round where you just name the thing that comes to the top of your mind, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Favorite book?
Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Okay. Favorite movie?
And Sapiens.
Oh. Okay. Favorite movie?
When Harry Met Sally.
Ooh, okay. Favorite food?
Oh, that's so hard. Oh my gosh. Anything Asian. All types of Asian food.
Okay. Favorite music?
I think maybe 90s hip hop.
Favorite way to de-stress and chill?
Running.
Every
jogging.
Day? Every day?
Almost every day I go.
Okay. Favorite drink?
Pinotage, red wine. It's a uniquely South African wine.
Okay. Favorite travel destination?
Okay, I'll say Hawaii.
Favorite childhood snack?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well now that I'm thinking about it, maybe, mochi.
Oh, mochi, okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, and finally, where can people find you online?
personally, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can look for me at Celina Lee on LinkedIn and connect with me there. And Zindi is active on all the platforms, so you can look for Zindi or Zindi Africa on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of them.
Okay. And we also put the links in the show notes. So for those who've missed all these places, you can just go to the show notes and click on the links and be directed directly to Zindi and all its social media. So Celina, I had such a great time talking to you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Krista.
I wanted to dig into so many other things, but I thought I should keep it really focused on what we talked about before, which is really an up close and personal interview with you, because I feel that sometimes many interviews out there about you or with you are really about building the platform, the business.
Yeah.
But very few really talk about the woman behind the business. So I find that the woman behind the business is always a lot more interesting. And I'm sure your business is interesting. I'm really glad that you built Zindi. But I know that behind all that hard work, the effort, is someone that is also an individual that has a story. And like you say, data tells a story, right?
Yes.
But the person, the founder, is also a story in herself.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I love that angle. I love that you're doing that, because a lot of these like other podcasts, like, or even like startup podcasts, it's a little bit, business and glossy and doesn't really show much vulnerability about the actual person behind it.
Yeah. And because you're real, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a founder, and we can't run away from those facts. But at the same time, there's always, like you mentioned, a lot of challenges in building up a startup, in raising funds, getting investments and things like that. But it's really good to look at the other side, so that in case anyone out there who's a female founder and who wants to connect with you, and feel free to do that. So I love doing that, and I like being that platform too.
That's so cool, Krista. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I had fun producing it. Celina and I had something in common. She has roots in Hawaii, and this podcast also has roots in Hawaii. This podcast was a project pitch that I made at the East West Center in July 2019 during the leadership program that I attended. Back then, I had no idea how to create a podcast. And like Celina, this podcast is a passion project, but it's also transformed into more than just a passion project. If you want to find out more about how this podcast started, check out episode 14 of season 7. Celina and I also gave a shout out to Charlie Ko, a mutual friend. Charlie was the one who recommended Celina to me. And if you want to hear Charlie's story, check out episode 6 in season 2. I'll put the links to the episodes in the show notes on womenpreneurasia.com. My aim isn't so much about rehashing the entrepreneur story as much as getting up close and personal with the entrepreneur. And I hope you like this angle where it's about the business side of things, but it's really about the Asian woman entrepreneur and her insights, opinions, and perspectives. If you're new to this podcast, do subscribe so that you can get the latest episodes. If you're a returning listener, can you do me a favor? Please rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast app. It will go a long way in helping others discover our show. It's a pleasure having you here with me as I uncover more stories of inspiring Asian women of Asia and beyond. I'll see you in season 9.